Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weeb from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after a Winnipeg Jets victory, snapping their two-game losing streak, continuing their handling of the Colorado Avalanche. I guess if you take a look at it, the season series for them goes 3-1, 1-2-1 for the Colorado Avalanche. Again, one of those games was a game that Connor Hellebuyck kind of stole. So I guess if we take a look at it, it's maybe, despite the 3-1 victory, we could probably take a look at this and say it's a pretty close rivalry between these two teams. I think enough that you would suggest the best thing the Jets could do in the first round is find a way to avoid playing the Colorado Avalanche. That said, in playing the Colorado Avalanche, the Winnipeg Jets seem to have really figured out a way to, make life hard on the very top players of the Colorado Avalanche. Now, I know I say that, and, Nathan MacKinnon goes out and gets a goal. Cale Makar gets a goal. Rantanen finds himself on the point sheet. But I do think that this was a pretty good example tonight of the Jets getting back to that grinding game. Of course, we have to address Adam Lowry, and we'll dig more into this later on. But week to week is not a good sign, but that is, I think, exactly what you want to see if you are the Winnipeg Jets, is finding a way to show the hockey world and yourselves that without probably your best defensive player and most grinding defensive player, you are still a grinding defensive team capable of shutting down high-end skill the way that the Winnipeg Jets did tonight, and then getting some contributions from down the lineup the way that the Winnipeg Jets did on this night. I take a look at this game, and it's pretty simple for me, and I sure do wonder what it means going into the playoffs, right? Because I was one of the ones who thought last year that the Winnipeg Jets were going to steamroll the Colorado Avalanche in the playoffs. Of course, that didn't happen. I take a look at this and I think like the Jets should do pretty well against them. But there's one thing that kind of stands out to me in this game. Like, the Jets win this game because of the casual nature of the Colorado Avalanche in a lot of plays. So if you go with me, and we'll break this goal down a little bit later, because a lot of you are going to have it as your TCB Lamplighter of the game. But the goal that Morgan Barron scores, to me, Parsonen is the guy who's supposed to be on him, and he borderline gives up on the play. I don't understand why, other than the fact that I guess maybe my standards are high, because when you watch the Winnipeg Jets are a team that competes, and they go and they go and they go. And even last game, when the Jets found themselves, making some critical errors against the Utah Hockey Club, it's not like they give up on the play. It's not like they don't try and get back into it. They go. And so when you watch that play, and if you go back, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Parson kind of slows down and reaches, and that's what opens up the Jets for that first goal. That's why it's in the back of the net. That's the video that his coach is going to be showing him afterwards. And then the casual nature with which Nathan MacKinnon kind of dives across the ice, leaving Neal Pionk wide open down the side to let the game-winning goal. And I add on to that, that probably I thought the greatest chance that didn't end up in the back of the net in the game for either team was Mark Scheifele's getting the puck, passing it off to Kyle Connor, getting it back in front, and that great toe save made to keep him from scoring that goal. If you take a look and rewind the video, you'll see Mikko Rantanen right there, just kind of casually reaching. And I guess that's it for me. Is that why the discrepancy between these two teams was so stark last year in the playoffs? And maybe, I don't know, we could look at it this year, because what you have is a Winnipeg Jets team that is fully committed and showing the kind of game it needs to play in the playoffs. And the Colorado Avalanche are maybe in third gear. I'm not sure. I wouldn't be happy as a coach if those were the plays. I don't know enough about the Colorado Avalanche to know if they can flip a switch like they did last year, because they were god-awful going into the playoffs, and all of a sudden they got really, really sharp. But it had me questioning, do we ever really see the Colorado Avalanche in the regular season when you have goals that are scored on clearly obvious non-compete plays, and sometimes by some of the very best players on the other teams. I know that if I were the coach of both of these teams, if I were Jared Bednar, I would be looking over and I would be tipping the cap at Scott Arniel, who even on nights like tonight where the Jets' very, very top players didn't have it offensively for the most part, at least didn't, show up big time on the scoreboard, you're getting a defensive compete from them that is allowing that game to stay where it is. Scott Arniel has got his players engaged. It's meaningful. It's why they win games like this. And conversely, it's why the Colorado Avalanche lose games like this. That's my take on the whole thing. Time to bring in the man with the best music in the business for his take on the whole thing. Here comes Kenny, folks. Kenny, the only thing looking as good as us in our Vittorio Rossi suits these days sounds like your golf game. Kenny out there scorching it up, hits an 82 today. He's just absolutely living the life down there. He's faced with that. It's one of those things where the raspberry starts looking worse before it looks better. I'm not saying you look bad, Ken. I said it before. You look tough.
Sounds
you
like
kept
it.
all your chiclets. It's all you needed here. But, if you did want to dress things up a little bit, nothing looks bad in a Vittorio Rossi suit. So you know what to do. If you're like Kenny and you go out and you take a puck to the face and stitches to the face, you just want to distract from that. I know some guys who can put on the kind of clothes on your back that will distract from just about anything. So head on down to Corden Avenue. Walk into Vittorio Rossi, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will do you up right. Ken, you said it. You thought it was a fun game. What'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? I mean, for these two teams, it was relatively low scoring. Yes, I mean, five goals is a lot, sure, but I mean, there's been some nights over the years, Sean, games we've witnessed both in person and on the telly that have featured quite a few more goals scored, but I thought there were still quite a few scoring chances in the game. I mean, Natural Stat Trick has the Avalanche down for 16 high dangers at 5-on-5 compared to 8 for the Jets, which I found interesting. I didn't really feel like there was a wide discrepancy, but fun game overall. I mean, I don't really, I'm not really all that concerned with what the stats say in this game. I thought the Jets did a pretty good job of defending. Like you said, I think you captured it perfectly. All three of the big three, the big guns were on the board and having major impacts on the 2 goals for the Avalanche. But I thought for the most part, the Jets did an excellent job of kind of minimizing the damage, especially without their best checking forward and Adam Lowry being on the shelf, which, as you mentioned, we'll get to in a minute here. But I like the diligence in the defensive zone. It's funny. I mean, I'd sent you a note during the third that I thought this was kind of one of those games where I thought that Mark Scheifele needed to find an extra gear and make a big offensive play in this game in order to see if they could get some separation, given how the Avalanche Stars came to the forefront. Josh Morrissey obviously was all over the map in this game, making plays, a couple of helpers, doing an excellent job. So I kind of felt like Josh did a great job in the, Morrissey versus Makar Norris candidate matchup. But with Nate sort of buzzing around all throughout the first period and then scoring early, I guess 7 minutes into the second, I wondered if we would see a Scheifele signature moment. But Sean, I feel like Scheifele made some major moments in the checking side of the game. So to me, that's probably far more valuable for the Jets to know that he can, hold his own against McKinnon when obviously Bednar was trying to get him out against that line for a good chunk of the game. So you have to sort of tip your cap and provide stick taps. It's another example that it's not just about points in games like this. I thought that Scheifele and Connor were still, effective in the game. And Sean, you touched on it. I mean, the save by Blackwood on Scheifele is unbelievable, but the pass by Kyle Connor to spring him for those chances. Very impressive as well. So all to say, I like the way that the Jets, newly configured top line did against that line when they were matched up against them. They weren't on the ice for the McKinnon goal. I'd have to double check about the Makar goal. I didn't think that they were out there, but I'd have to double check. But it's interesting. I mean, I didn't see a ton of cohesion with Nemesnikov, Ehlers, and Velarde. Yet there's Velarde going to the hard areas, and puck goes in off of him because he gets to the blue paint. So they were able to make a contribution, even though I didn't really think their line was lighting it up per se. But again, these things don't happen overnight, and it's a reminder of the chemistry that the Jets have from the top line that has been together for the majority of these 49 games here. So Velarde hitting 20, that's a massive mark. 15 to go to hit my prediction of the preseason of 35 plus. He's got a career high for 42 points now, Sean, with 30 plus left to go. So that's a big development for the Jets. I thought Sandberg, we knew that he would be better in this game, and I thought he was, especially in those late penalty, the late penalty kill. He was kind of all over the place. You touched on it. David Gustafson, coming through with his first point in the first game without Adam Lowry. That's a massive contribution. Fourth line gets a goal. And again, and Connor Hellebuyck, very rock solid. And Sean, I mean, we'll get to it later on, but man, for all of the people that were flooding our chat room over the years with, oh my God, Connor Hellebuyck stay in the net, he can't handle the puck. His patience and calmness and poise when being pressured in overtime in a 3-on-3 situation to calmly get the puck over to Nemesnikov to start the entire play on the breakout, that's impressive stuff. And I hate to do this mid-buffet, but I mean, that's pristine roofing wake-up territory for folks who think that Connor Hellebuyck can't play the puck. So I'm going to step back, shrimp from the shrimp cocktail, and toss it back to you.
Well, let's do that. Let's be honest, Kenton, just pull that down for a second, because this is something that we talked about right from the start. Like Connor Hellebuyck, I get it. I get that there's a moment in history and time, and it just may be the most important time in Winnipeg Jets 2.0 or maybe 1.0 history, is that giveaway that he has against the Vegas Golden Knights in a game they really needed to win, game 4 of that series. So I get that. I get that that's a scar that runs really, really deep. And so I understood why fans always didn't like him playing the puck. But I'd said this last year on a couple of rants, like he's really key to the Winnipeg Jets. The way that the Winnipeg Jets stand up at the line and try to stop the puck from entering their zone, it's important that they have a goaltender who's able to get the puck and start, because that's what he is. He's like having an extra defender back there, and he starts the first pass on the breakout. What it means is if I'm Dylan DeMello, I can comfortably stand up at the line and challenge the guy to make sure that he doesn't get in with possession. I don't back in. I don't give them the zone and start defending. You don't give them the zone, force them to throw it in, and then if Connor Hellebuyck stops it and gets it, then you've started possession and you're starting the puck up ice. You saw that the point that Ken's making where he ended up back out in behind his net with the puck, and the Avalanche just kind of stopped both ways to try and bait him to do something stupid, and he just completely understood that there was no pressure, so there was nowhere for him to go. Now, I know it made everybody uncomfortable out there that the net is sitting wide open for as long as it is, but Connor Hellebuyck, part of what has made him a better goaltender is that he's become an elite puck-moving goaltender. Now, I'm not saying that he's one of these guys who's able to like shoot, that you'll hear some of these goaltenders just had like absolutely amazing shots, and the way that they were able to like make saucer passes from their own end to the other team's blue line. He's not at that level, but he's definitely at the level where you can consider him a third defender for the Winnipeg Jets, and a really, really important key to this team getting out of its zone with possession and not getting bottled up in its own zone. This has been a work in progress for a lot of years. I've seen him get better and better and better. We've talked about it multiple times on this show. Everyone out there, to the point of just saying, and how many I can't count how many texts I got from people saying he just needs to stay in his net, or he makes me nervous every time he gets out. It is a strength of the Winnipeg Jets that he does this. And so, yes, retroactively, or even if you're even ringing that bell now, pristine wake-up territory for you to say Connor Hellebuyck shouldn't be handling the puck. It is key to the Winnipeg Jets' success, and you know what that means. Time to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing wake-up call at 204-981-6289. He's the guy you want down at your place for any of your roofing, siding, or exterior needs. You can also call Pristine Roofing directly at 204-237-7663. They could do the work that you need right now. Any exterior work, you don't need to worry about the weather. You don't need to worry about waiting into summer. You don't need to worry. What you do need to worry about is waiting too long and then not being able to get someone down to your house. Pristine Roofing can come down there right now, and as cold as it is, and as you know, I don't know if the sucky boo-boos miss some of these shows, but also are afraid to go outside. Pristine Roofing, definitely not the sucky boo-boos. Pristine Roofing, let them give your house the Pristine Roofing wake-up call. All right, Ken, let's get into Adam Lowry right off the bat, and how you think that the Winnipeg Jets survived the loss of Adam Lowry and looked every bit as defensively sound.
Yeah, I mean, it's impressive. And we talked about this a little bit after the game, even though we weren't sure what the severity is, or in real time. I mean, if it was happening on the run into the boards, I mean, it looked like it was lower body instead of upper, but they're going to have to do it by committee. I mean, this is very simple. The Jets don't have anyone else who play that style of game at that level of efficiency, both in terms of what they can generate, how much offensive zone time they have, and winning draws, penalty kill, leadership, all of the things. So they're going to have to do it as a cumulative effort. But I mean, as you mentioned, so what it means is that Mark Scheifele is going to have some additional responsibility. And yes, we know he has gone head to head, best on best at various points this year. Scott O'Neill has mentioned it on multiple occasions. It means Vlad Namestnikov, who's just in his second game back, needs to get more defensive minutes and do a great job on that front. It means Rasmus Kapari is going to have to elevate his game. He'll have to take more faceoffs, even though he's a righty versus Lowry as a lefty. It means he's taking on more responsibility. It means David Gustafsson has to have a little additional responsibility because he has the defensive acumen. In a similar vein, he's not as effective at it as Lowry. Obviously, Lowry's one of the best in the NHL at it, and is going to be a Selke candidate. So all of those guys together need to kind of do the job, not do the job of one person, but each person takes on a little bit more responsibility, and that's how they're going to survive. And it also means wingers are going to have to do more and everything else. So again, I thought that they've handled it really well. We talked about this, Sean. I mean, David Gustafsson, very responsible defensive player, but you want to stay in the NHL. Rick Bowness told him 2 years ago, if you want to be in the NHL, you have to produce some offense. So David spent the last 2 summers working extremely hard on his skating. He's going to continue working on it. He needs a little bit more offensive production. I'm not saying that 1 assist in 17 games is optimal production, because I'm not. I know he needs to produce more, but this is the kind of play that David Gustafsson can make. And also, flowers to Mason Appleton. He drives the net, and that's what creates the lane for Morgan Barron, despite a poor back check by Parsonen, as you pointed out. But that's a great backhand sauce. Really heads up play by Gustafsson. And again, when you have Lowry out, you need guys to step up both defensively and offensively. And that's sort of how they survived the first game. Now, week to week can be an interesting assessment, Sean, right? I mean, there was a time when Tyler Myers was day to day in 2019 and never came back, right? In November, he was day to day, didn't come back for the rest of the season. I'm not saying that's the case, but when it comes to timelines, week to week can be a scary thing because you don't know what's happening in terms of where things are at. I don't think that a Terwilliger party foul, you can't call a wake-up call from 2 seasons ago. The number of emails and texts Sean and I are getting have gone down considerably. Agreed. We still get them. I still have people telling me Hellebuyck should stay in his crease. That's why I'm going with the wake-up call. It's not just a retroactive wake-up call. It's still current.
It is. We still have someone that just made the comment here, and I had to point it out. Okay, here Kenny's water bottle says Helly's puck handling has been. Oh no, sorry, he's actually got it right here. Someone, I think it was SK, had said his puck handling is way better this year than in previous years. He was great last year. It was part of their plan last year. Yep. He has been a great puck handler for the Jets for a number of years now. What he's doing this year is nothing new. It is what he's been doing for the last number of years, and he's been doing it now. I'll agree that even after the 2018 season into the 2019, he was always active in getting out, and he'd make those mistakes. Those mistakes are very few and far between. And there was a point last year, Ken, where he made a mistake, and we talked about it in the show, and we said, listen, you can, so he makes this one mistake and it ends up in the back of their net. How many goals have not ended up in the back of the Jets net because he gets the puck to Josh Morrissey in a good spot? Morrissey skates it out of the zone, and that's just not, that kills any play before any play can develop. It just means less time in your zone, less time to be scored on. So no, there's no party foul here. No party foul. No. T-Will, as crazy as it sounds, and I love that you called him Terwilliger.
Sorry,
Terwilliger got it wrong. I mean, wow. Who would have thought? Anyways, go on.
Yeah, so I mean, again, it's one game. They survived the one game. It's going to be difficult, no doubt. I mean, could it expedite the process of looking to add in that center ice range? I mean, we'll see. And again, we don't know. When it's kind of a blanket statement on the week-to-week side, we don't know if that means minimum of 1 week. Does it mean 2 weeks? Does it mean extended period of time? Without knowing the nature of the injury, it's kind of difficult to weigh in with that. But, I mean, we do know that in the State of the Union mid-season, just past the mid-season address Kevin Cheveldayoff had with my colleague Mike McIntyre from the Winnipeg Free Press and Murat Atesh from The Athletic, that Kevin Cheveldayoff went out of his way. He knows that it's out there, that the Jets were one of the three teams to touch base with Taves' camp, but he was very open that the Jets are not only interested and intrigued, but, they're trying to sign him. I mean, actively hoping to see where things are at once he has a better indication of where things are at. And Sean, I mean, based on some of the information that we're hearing, we expect that decision on whether he's going to return this year or wait until next fall to be made at some point in February. So we'll sort of see where that goes. But I found that to be pretty interesting. But anyways, I'm going to toss it to you to see what you thought of how they handled it. I mean, again, and also I think even though he doesn't play the center position, getting Mason Appleton back is also important because of the things that he does on the defensive side of the puck. And yes, he was eased in on the fourth line, which, hey, we might have heard that before on this show, suggesting that might be a good spot for him to start. I thought he was pretty effective. And I mean, as Mason pointed out on the broadcast, first game back against the Avalanche, against their speed, against McKinnon when they could, at altitude, not an easy pull for your first game back. Same with Hayden Fleury, but I thought that having Appleton probably also helps on that front in terms of, energizing and, the things that he can do on the forecheck, but also his defensive awareness, without Lowry being available there.
So I'm going to pick up where you left off. Mason Appleton, great energy in his first game back. You miss a guy like Adam Lowry who goes and leans on the other team. And then what does he do? He goes out and he smashes up the player into the backboards, gets into it, causes someone was asking what the penalty was. He got called for tripping, but takes his guy off. I thought the Jets gained energy from that 4-on-4. The Jets were clearly the more dangerous team on that 4-on-4, but you nailed it, Ken. The goal, the Barron goal, does not happen if it's not for Mason Appleton driving the front of the net. Now, I went through this little lesson, and I'll go through it quickly again for my kinesiology background. But the way that you deke a player out is you get the brain to not just think something is about to happen, but to start acting. And if you right in that moment, there's a moment where the brain, before it starts acting, the signal goes to a part of the brain and then the body reacts. But once that signal has been sent, the body cannot stop reacting. It's a bottleneck. You have to wait until that reaction goes through before you can send the new thought in there. So So the thought actually works faster than the movement. That's why if you've ever been out on a hockey or in basketball or whatever, and you've been deked out in real time, you know that it's happened. You know you've been deked out, but your body cannot react to it. It's like being kind of frozen by paralysis kind of thing. The importance of Appleton here is Blackwood thinks that he's the danger. So the pass, as good of a pass as it is, if it's just Barron, even with Parsonen giving up on the play like he did, it's very easy for Blackwood to just move with the pass and be in the right spot to stop that. The reason why it's a wide open tap in for Barron is because Blackwood thinks that Mason Appleton is the danger. By the time he realizes he's not the danger, it's too late for his body to act, and that's why it's in the back of the net. So without that center drive the way Mason Appleton does it, his name won't show up on the scoreboard, but this is most definitely one of those goals that does not happen if Mason Appleton isn't doing what Mason Appleton is doing in that play. So the Jets, I think, are happy to get him back. Other than that, I mean, I think I personally can think, if we go back to this and the conversations that everyone's been having, and I was on WST yesterday and I was talking about,
I listened to you, even though I'm on holiday.
And I know that there's a lot of, I know that the Huss is interested in that. And I know that you are, and I get it. I'm interested in seeing, what happens there as well. But to me, the Winnipeg Jets are just, even with Lowry up alongside Nick Ehlers, they're just another version of a team that can spread guys out over three lines, where their strength is how well they defend. And yes, were we all a little bit surprised that Nikolai Ehlers worked on a line with Adam Lowry where they could put him out and that could be used as a shutdown line? Yeah, I think we were, but it's not like Nick Ehlers, other than some questionable giveaways I thought tonight. I thought he was a little careless with the puck, but still a player who was competing hard and working out there and not costing you defensively. So to me, I need more. Like I need more from another scoring line outside of the first line. And to me, what that means is the third line is eventually going to go back together, and the Jets are going to have to act on some of the stuff that you were talking about. Dream scenario, Jonathan Toews comes back and is once again Jonathan Toews and helps his hometown Winnipeg Jets team win a Stanley Cup. That would be, that's the dream scenario, but a lot of other options out there. I know you mentioned Brock Nelson. I think he's a perfect fit as well. Going to be some competition for those guys. I bet you Minnesota's trying to find a way to bring Brock Nelson in as well. But regardless, I guess I'm confident enough that Lowry being out of the lineup does not mean a collapse by the Winnipeg Jets offense or defensively. I'm totally at odds with all these other people who think that this game was a polar opposite game from the Utah game. To me, and I'd said it on WST if you heard me, we are two Samberg mistakes in that game that ended up in the back of the Jets net, away from us talking about how resilient they were and stuck with their game plan and how good they were defensively and pulled out a 3-2 victory against the Utah team. I don't think these two games are that much different. I guess my point in a roundabout way is this team's Scott Arniel and the coaching staff has this team defending so well right now that you can even lose your best defending player and still be a grinding team that makes it extremely difficult. The only two goals the Avs scored here tonight, Ken, were brilliant goals. Yep. Like brilliant goal. It took brilliance for them to get the puck in behind the Winnipeg Jets and in behind Connor Hellebuyck. So I take a look at Adam Lowry. I think the Jets are going to survive just fine. I think, though, it doesn't change anything in the idea of needing to look at what he looks like with Ehlers. The Jets are going to have to go at it the trade deadline. I think we've seen from Kevin Cheveldayoff in his comments that they fully expect to do that.
Yeah, no doubt. I feel the same way. And again, to be clear, I don't necessarily think that is going to be the way they end. I was saying that based on what they have now, I wanted to see it for a longer period of time. I 100% think that they're going to need to add. And, I would say that in a perfect world, Kevin Cheveldayoff would add a 2C that has some term, like he did when they got Pierre-Luc Dubois in here. I think that this is we know that Braden Yager is coming. Whether it's a year from now or 2 years from now, that 2C job, I think eventually can be his, but he's going to be a middle six forward at some point, sooner than later. But I still think that they would be open to looking at someone with term. But guess what? Those guys with term are usually a little bit more difficult to acquire. But yeah, I mean,
Do they have the resources?
And that's the other thing too. Like, it depends on what you're looking at and who's available, right? I mean, who's going to be available that is in that scenario? And guess what? Every team that has them, and if you have one of them that has term, well, most of the time you're going to want to keep that player.
Yeah. You know what? The one thing I have been thinking, Ken, because I've said this before and I truly believe it. Like, if you're trying to deal with one of these teams right now that's trying to move a guy,
right,
but they want something back, the Winnipeg Jets don't have that. But what they could do is they could find a third partner, right? Like, go out and find a team that's interested in futures and start moving futures, and then have that team move something to that team and make a three-way trade. Like, that's a workaround for what the Winnipeg Jets are dealing with right now. But I mean, I find it fascinating. Someone had brought up Barzal, and someone had brought up Nelson. Like, Nelson is far more realistic because there's a good chance to lose him for nothing. Barzal is a massive ask that is, a lockdown player with a big contract, a player that I personally, all those years that I kept saying, everyone who was trying to say Patrick Laine was gone and was out the window, I kept saying he just needed to get to the right spot. I thought Montreal was the right spot. I think I was one of the first journalists out there to say that. He's doing just fine there. He's 3 points back of a point per game pace. He's scoring at a ridiculous rate right now. Matt Barzal is a star. It's a travesty that they have not got him a trigger man to play with after all these years. We saw how good he was in the playoffs, Ken. The 2 years the Islanders went to the
Anders Lee's a pretty good player. I mean, Anders Lee's a pretty good player.
Oh, I know. But I don't know. I don't think he's like what you're looking. I mean, he's no Kyle Connor, and I know a lot of players aren't, but I think that there's been a long time that Matt Barzal has been there, that you could try and get him with a guy who's like one of those guys who you just get him the puck sometimes and he's going to get you points, but sometimes you open things up for him. Matt Barzal is a guy that I think if you move him to 20 other teams in the league, he's going to be a star. He's going to be a point per game player. He's going to be one of the, better guys in the league. They just need to get him out of that situation. But I don't know that if you're the Islanders, you're moving on from that unless you get something really significant right now, unless they decide they're entirely tearing down. Even if they are, if a guy like that comes available, you better get ready to start cleaning out the cupboards to bring a guy like that in.
Yeah. And so, I mean, he's not Laine, but I mean, Anders Lee, 34, 40, 28, 20, 12 in a truncated season, 28, 28, 20, 20 this year. So, I mean, but again, he's not a natural goal scorer the way that those guys are, maybe. But I mean, also too, Matt Barzal's a driver. He should be driving his own line. So, but I'm with you. I mean, and again, I don't think they're going to move him. Why would you move him if you're back to almost being a point of game player and you're going to be losing Brock Nelson as it is? And I think Pajot is either a year or two away. So there's no impetus for the Islanders to move him out. I mean, he's still one of their best players.
Yeah, this is Rain's got it here. If you put Barzal in line with Kyle Connor, you could go back to the Ehlers and Velarde and Scheifele thing. And I don't know which of those two lines would be the better line because Barzal is smooth skating guy. Anyways, we went down a little bit of a hole there. I am going to bring something up here.
Let's talk about
asked for. Nick says if Taze were here right now, he'd say it's a headband night. Who am I to say no to Jonathan Taze, though? Maybe the greatest player to ever come out of Manitoba. So you know what that means, folks. Time to make this a Sean's Headband version of the Kenny and Renny Show. Ken, we've got this far. We haven't even talked about the winning goal of the game, which is absolutely crazy. Now, this is for me like complete and total deja vu.
Right.
2 seasons ago, the Winnipeg Jets opened their season. It's a Wednesday night hockey game in Colorado. It was a Sportsnet game, so I was there. I was watching from the
I
same
think I was
corner.
there too.
Yeah, maybe.
I was at Sportsnet.
Yes,
I mean, I'm
yes,
pretty
you
sure
did.
I was there.
You rolled in and then you went on to the town, to the next town. I went home after that. Anyway, I remember this was kind of the arrival of the new age Rick Bonus kind of, we're going to do things differently around here. Before that, who was starting in overtime? Every single time it was going to be Blake Wheeler, it was going to be Josh Morrissey, and it was going to be Mark Scheifele. That was it. Yeah, or Connor, but usually it was Scheifele and Wheeler.
Right.
And then if I remember that game, I don't know who the winger was, but they started with Adam Lowry and Pionk. I can't remember who the other winger was. Maybe it was Niederreiter at that point. I don't think they'd started Niederreiter with, it was Mason Appleton. Right. Who was on the ice with them. So, so same thing tonight. A little bit of an oddball. Like, raise your hands if you had Vlad Namestnikov starting with the draw in overtime. Like,
and that's doing the Lowry thing, right? I mean, in that situation, Lowry would be taking that draw. So that it goes right back to what we talked about with, who's coming in for Lowry.
But I'll tell you this. So it ends up being that Neal Pionk comes down the ice and scores the exact same goal that he scores to knock off Colorado 2 years ago. To me, Ken, that game was a little bit of an arrival. The Jets had missed the playoffs the year before that. And there was just kind of like this new attitude with the Jets that they came out, and now everyone was invested all of a sudden, right? It wasn't, a team that relied on its stars or did whatever. All of a sudden that signal was like, everybody on this team counts now. That's still working. You can see it in the way they played tonight. This is a complete and total team effort that wins them this game. And this is a complete and total, we've got faith in pretty much everyone going out over the boards. Oh, you're going to put out Rantanen, McKinnon, and Makar? Fine. We're going to put out Neal Pionk, Vladdy Namestnikov, and who was the other forward out there tonight? Ken, was it Niederreiter? Sorry, was it Kyle Connor? Who did they have out there with him?
I'll double check in a second.
Anyways, regardless, I just thought that this was
Namestnikov made the pass. I'll get right away here.
Yeah. Anyways, I mean, you want to talk about a payoff? How about the payoffs that the Winnipeg Jets coaching staff has had with this team over the years in showing this team, it was Ehlers, in showing this team that it's just not only about their very top guys. They find different ways to win games. On a night like tonight, you get it from the fourth line, you get it from your 2C, who's a fill-in 2C, who goes and helps out, from your second pairing defenseman. The Winnipeg Jets' faith in their lineup, in their depth, has paid off time and time again over the years, and it does so again tonight. The second time a group of people you would not expect on the ice in overtime goes up against maybe the toughest 3-on-3 group in the NHL. Like, is there another team that on paper would have a stronger 3-on-3 group than
Edmonton? Maybe.
Yeah, maybe Edmonton, and that's it. But I mean, if you throw Makar in there, I mean, like, you're talking about the top 2 scorers in the NHL and the top scoring defenseman in the NHL. Even Edmonton, I don't think, can match that. And yet, there you go. You've got Vladdy Namestnikov, Neal Pionk. It pays off to have faith in your group. And hey, if you're looking to pay off high interest credit cards or debt, we suggest you go talk to our friends at Cambrian Credit Union about their payoff loan. They can show you how taking out a loan to pay off your debt actually gets you debt-free faster, and you can save thousands of dollars. Go to cambrian.mb.ca to book an appointment online. Ken, what's your take on that?
One more thing that pays off is giving your team the day off when you really want to bag skate them, because you put the onus on the player on the day off to respond in the game after you come through with what the head coach called an embarrassing effort.
Yes, no doubt at all. You want to weigh in on any of that? Yeah, here's something I wanted to talk about. Do we criminally underrate Neal Pionk's shot?
I mean, I don't know about criminally. I mean, if there were a few more, I mean, again, that's
never talk about it. I don't remember anyone in
down Clap City. I mean, everybody knows how much I love the Clapper, and I mean, that's absolutely awesome. It just Sean, that other one was 2 years ago. Like, I'm not saying he hasn't had one since, but
No, but
I,
have you not noticed how many shots this year he's like gets on net? He'll blow it right past the goaltender. It'll be a
yeah,
good tip. Like, we do not give him credit for the way that he gets the puck to the net in a dangerous way, where he can either just get it right past the goaltender or he can get tip pucks. Like, he plays the puck to areas that are A, dangerous and could go in the net if they go unchecked, or B, are are in an area where players can get their sticks to them. I mean,
no, fair, yeah.
I don't know. I personally think that we have not talked enough about Neal Pionk and his shot and his ability to get the puck to the net. We know that he puts up his points, but I think we need to give him more credit on the shot.
No, totally fine. I mean, that seventh goal of the year. I mean, Sean, we talked about this. We knew that Morrissey was going to have a great year, and one of the questions was, could Dylan Sandberg handle the second pairing minutes? That is a resounding yes. And the other part we wondered about the Jets' defense is, could Neal Pionk have a bounce back season in his contract year as a pending UFA? He's obviously answered the bell with that, right? I mean, to me, that was one of the most important things for the Jets, is that Pionk got back to playing like himself in sort of the early years after coming over in the trade. And yeah, I mean, the offensive game is part of that. And we've seen much less chaos in the defensive zone. There was a little bit of chaos when Sandberg was out of the lineup, but his ability to have a great season has been massive for the Jets. I mean, there's absolutely no doubt about that. And Sean, his slapper is a weapon. And I mean, the only reason I'm going to counter the argument, and I do agree we don't talk about it enough, is that there was a point not long ago, before Josh Morrissey started taking over the top unit, Neal Pionk was on the top unit, and we did see that shot a little bit more regularly. But because now he's on the second unit, maybe we haven't seen it as often. But we should talk about it more. Absolutely, 100%.
All right. Well, what I'd like you to talk about right now is Sweet Lou. Give him a
Oh,
shot.
sure. Yeah. For folks who have realty needs you would like to have met, buying, selling, curious what the house on the corner might be going for in this new year, contact Lou Ferlin at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 2004-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of our fine community.
All right. We're going to have to talk about Perfetti before we get here. But the first thing I wanted to do is I wanted to talk a little bit about, and you can weigh in on this, Ken. And it's hard to say this after Makar scores the goal that he scores here tonight. It's absolutely gorgeous, shows what he's capable of. But I talked about this the last two times, or the last time anyways, that these teams played, that Josh Morrissey's mix of defense and offense, 2 points on this night. I thought he was the Jets' best player. I think that pretty much every game that they've played this year, outside maybe that loss in Colorado last time, that he's outshone Cale Makar. That's not easy to do. But I mean, I'll say this. I said to you, there's a number of times tonight that I didn't necessarily like the way that Cale Makar defended plays. I thought he could be lumped in with the guys I was talking about at the beginning of this game, or the beginning of this podcast, about how casual a lot of the stars were. Nathan McKinnon on the game-winning goal, Rantanen on the chance, Parsonen on the first goal that the Jets scored. I mean, I don't see that ever from Josh Morrissey, and I don't know that it's like we'll up our game when it comes playoff time. I like what I see from Josh Morrissey right now. If I were Team Canada and I had watched the Winnipeg Jets Colorado Avalanche game so far this year, I don't know that I would be that I would not be surprised. Like, I think I would walk into those games and look and be like, geez, Josh Morrissey looks really, really good when you put him alongside the best defenseman out there in the league in a head-to-head fashion.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that I agree with you. I thought Josh was probably the Jets' best player today as well. Those head-to-heads are important when you're Cale's got his name on the trophy, Sean. Josh is a guy who wants to be on the trophy. So when you have head-to-heads with Quinn Hughes, with Cale Makar, you got to shine in those games. I mean, again, Josh is a team first guy. He would never put himself ahead of the team or anything like that in order to try to get his name higher on somebody's ballot. But it's because of the way that he can play against top-notch competition that is the reason he is on the ballot in the first place. And it's one of the reasons why he's, inching toward being a finalist for the award rather than just be a guy who is 5th and 7th. And I'm not taking anything away from 5th and 7th, but when you're having the kind of years that Morrissey has been having, you want to continue to improve and work your way up that list and eventually win the trophy. So I agree with you. And just quickly as an aside, when Colorado was rolled through town 11 days ago, I spoke with Cale about Josh. We know they're mutual admiration society. They work out together at times in Calgary in the summer. Cale flat out said to me, even he's hoping that there will be times where they get on the ice together as a pairing, even though we know that the most likely pairing is going to be Taves and Makar. He said he's pumped to have Josh as a teammate and would actually like to be on the ice with him a little bit. And man, if you're John Cooper, would you not be intrigued by that pairing? I mean, man, I certainly would. Whether you're, chasing, down by a goal, sure, it makes sense. But I think that'd be a super interesting pairing at some point. Again, sorry to get sidetracked, but yeah, I love Josh's game. I mean, it's another classic effort by Morrissey here. We got, what's the final line here? 28 shifts, 23-15, 2 assists in the game, 4 shots on net, 5 shot attempts, 1 takeaway. So yeah, I thought he was great in the game. And, he needed to be. And then that's part of, again, we talked all about the centers and the forwards. Well, when Adam Lowry's out, guys like Josh, even though Josh is having a great year, exceptional, he's going to have to step up a little bit too with Adam being out, both on the leadership side, which he already has a big hand in, and also the on-ice product, because that's what happens. Your best players have to elevate when other important cogs are out of the lineup.
Ken, just quickly on Corey Kolchicki here, who says, what's likely is Chevy brings in a 2C using a first plus and a depth D, keeps Ehlers as a self-rental. Given where the Jets have been for the vast majority of this year, what is the value of a Jets first round pick, given that pick could be a very late first round pick?
Yeah, I mean, teams covet them. So whether you're picking 5th or 32nd or whatever, 28th, 32nd, whatever it ends up being, or somewhere in that range, I mean, it could be lower. But I mean, right now, based on being one of the best teams in the league, it's going to be, 27 to 32. I still think there's a lot of teams that value picks at the bottom of the first round, even though, that's where the Jets would be expecting to pick here. But it's always tough. There have been some years, Sean, where teams didn't want to give first round picks again. It was like, I think maybe 2 years ago when not as many firsts were moved. So it all depends who gets in on the market early. And, it's crazy. I mean, Timo Meier is a guy that both of us were pretty high on when we had heard Jets GM Kevin Cheveldayoff was scouting him in Tampa a couple of years ago. He went to New Jersey, and now things haven't been smooth for Timo Meier. But that's still the kind of impact player or big-bodied guy that I think the Jets would love to have, even though he's not a center and he's a winger. But it's hard to say what the value is going to be. And as you talked about before, and you talked about with us, I mean, the only current player on the roster that teams are going to be asking about Cole Perfetti. There's going to be teams who think this is just a dry spell and that, under, having first power play minutes.
Really?
You don't think that there's someone out there that thinks that Cole Perfetti has value?
Is just in a dry spell? I think that Cole Perfetti has shown pretty clearly over the last couple of years that he's a player who goes fairly dormant and has had trouble in the grind of hockey as hockey gets more of a grind. So
sure, but he still had 19 goals, even though he went a quarter of the season without Sean. Goal scoring is still one of the highest commodities. He was almost a 20 goal scorer last year.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
I'm not saying that you're going to give Cole Perfetti and get Brock Nelson, but there's going to be teams that struggle to score that would see value in him, as maybe he gets on the first power play and uses some of those other skills. But I mean, he's one of the only.
Okay, let's just play this out. Let's play out who the Jets are going to be going and trying to get with that pick, right? Are you going to move out Brock Nelson and go be moving the kind of big, tough, compete, goal-scoring guy that you're moving out, and your return for that, like what you're trying to do when you make those moves is you're trying to replicate or get back what that guy was. Cole Perfetti flies entirely in the face of what Brock Nelson is. I mean, if you're watching from the outside, you're watching a kid who has not been able to cut it as a top 6 player and is slowly falling down the lineup and not finding a spot where he can latch on. This does not sound like people want strength for strength. And I don't know that there's, I mean, to me at this stage, Ken, it is quite clear to me that if you are trading for Cole Perfetti, you are trading for a project. You are trading for a player that you think whatever's happening there, it's not working. We can figure out what's wrong with this guy. That's what you're looking for with Cole Perfetti. It's far from a can't miss prospect in this situation right now. Cole, I think, has had a hard time transitioning to the NHL and finding a game that works for him at the NHL. And I think if you're a team, you're almost more willing to go looking and say, listen, you give us a pick and we'll go pick something that we think fits rather than grabbing this that fits specifically. I don't think that scouts are thinking about him the way that you're suggesting they are.
Well, I mean, again, this is not going to only be a points discussion, Sean, but Cole Perfetti has 25 points and Brock Nelson has 28. So, I mean, obviously Brock Nelson's resume is much longer, but Brock Nelson's 33, Cole Perfetti's 23. You just told me that the Islanders don't score.
We've touched on where Cole gets his points. We know where Cole gets his points.
Oh, sure, but the Islanders will be playing teams.
Yeah, and we know where Nelson gets his points.
Sure, but again,
so these are two polar different.
You're making it sound like it's absurd. I'm saying there's got to be more than Perfetti in the deal, but the Islanders will be getting a player who's 10 years younger and has scored 19 goals 1 year removed from that, even though he has had a dry spell. And I mean, again, you don't think that the brain of Perfetti could work with Barzal? I mean, he's not Patrick Laine in terms of his sniping ability, but he has goal scoring ability. So anyways, I'm not saying the Islanders.
We'll just be,
I would think that
different on this one.
There's 32 teams in the NHL. A lot of them need scoring. So anyways, let's go on. We got to talk about the hip check quickly before we get into the.
The hip check is
just briefly. I mean,
it's a bad call. It's a hip check. It's not a penalty. It shouldn't have been a penalty. It didn't end up being much of it. Refs missed a call in real time. When I saw it at first, I thought it was a penalty too, and then I saw the replay of it, and I was like, yeah, that's a bad call. That's just refs missing it in real time. Didn't have an effect on the game really, other than the fact that maybe the Jets could have won it in regulation, but nothing suggests that. To me, it's a ref missed a call. That's it.
Yeah, and the reason, again, and I'm not defending the refs, but the reason they missed it in real time is because of how Nikolai Ehlers' legs were out. One leg was kind of out. So I think if you're the ref at the back who's calling it, you see the leg out, you see the guy fall down, you think he must have tripped over his leg. But I give Ehlers a tremendous amount of credit for getting his hip into a spot that he made a nice hip check on one of the shiftiest players in the NHL. That's why I wanted to mention it. I didn't want to rip on the refs for making a bad call. Jets did a great job of killing it off, but I just thought that the hip check itself and trying to check McKinnon in real time is a dastardly deed in itself. So I just was impressed by Ehlers, even though it was a little bit awkward. I thought he did a really good job with the hit.
Okay. Let's get to the Johnson Group got you covered play of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, you go. You got the best one there. You pointed it out to me.
So it was going
the stick lifts.
Ross. The stick lift was a good one by Iafallo. On that penalty that we're talking about, Nathan McKinnon moves it into the middle. You could tell at some point on the bench, their coaches had identified that as maybe their best opportunity to get a scoring chance. They tried it twice. The one time they actually had it, they didn't have it because Iafallo lifts the stick. But I actually think Connor Hellebuyck covering himself. There was one point where a pass came from behind the net. It was going to Ross Colton, who would have been all alone.
Oh, right, yeah.
And very casually, Connor Hellebuyck just reached out with his paddle and stopped it. I mean, that's one of those things that as a goaltender, if you miss that, then the player has it on his stick and you're leaning the wrong way and they just go far post and it's in the back of the net. So all those people who are talking about how bad he is at handling the puck, to me, that's just another example of an extremely confident goaltender being able to make a play that is like an all or nothing play, that he's just like, I'm ahead of this. I know where this is coming from. I've got this and I know how to handle the puck. For me, that's the Johnson Group got you covered play of the game. You got anything, Ken?
No, it's good. It's a good one. There are a couple good candidates, and I liked both of those.
Yes. Well, I thought it was a great example of the Kenny and Renny OG's Johnson Group got you covered. He had himself covered, folks. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. Keg save of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, honorable mention to Hellebuyck. And again, this is one of those classics where, you might say Hellebuyck was a tad, I wouldn't say casual, but he obviously, there was an element of luck in him, when McKinnon walked in the first and, went 5-hole, and Hellebuyck gets his pad on it, and he gets his pad on it enough that it goes off the post. So Hellebuyck will say he played the angle absolutely perfectly because it couldn't go in. But he still needed Logan Stanley to be behind him to make sure that it didn't go in. And that's my honorable mention. But I mean, we're in agreement here. The Mackenzie Blackwood back-to-back saves on Mark Scheifele at that critical point of the game has to be the Keg save of the game, because he ensured that the Avalanche got at least a point in the game. I mean, those saves were unbelievable. It wasn't a Scheifele muff of the chance. Mackenzie kicked out the leg and made an exceptional save. So for me, that's what I'm going with.
Yeah, honestly, if you're picking anything else, like I know it's hard for. Someone had said here earlier on, like, oh, lucky bounce by McKinnon on that goal and whatever. It's like, well, glass half full, glass half empty. If you're a Jets fan, you're thinking, wow, he's lucky that went off the post and went back to him. And if you're a Colorado fan, you're thinking, wow, Hellebuyck's lucky that went off the post. He had him beat clean. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's regardless. If you're not looking at that save and thinking that that's the save of the game, I question that you watch the game, or I question that you can't take off the aviator blue shades for a second to point out the obvious. That's our hashtag, the Keg save of the game. And as much as I just said that you shouldn't be going for it, you should do whatever you want. Share with us your hashtag, the Keg save of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine Keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. And our winner from our last show of the Keg $50 gift certificate, that would be Disgruntled Wheat. Disgruntled Wheat.
Oh,
you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email. I'll have the fine folks at the Keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine Keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. And that brings us to our TCB Lamplighter of the game. What do you got, Ken?
Buddy, loved all 5 of them, quite frankly, in their own way. McKinnon, rhinoceros on skates, Makar, brilliance, but only after Rantanen drags everybody to him. Gus Bus pass, getting it to Barron. I mean, tying goal. And also too, I mean, the GW has to be it. I mean, Clap City, tickle the ceiling, bar down. Like, I mean, it's exceptional, but that's what I've got to go with. But I mean, like I said, I loved each of the goals in their own way. And again, I guess I should not ignore Velarde, but I mean, it wasn't as pretty, but repeatable goals, you go to the hard areas, right? But it's got to be Pionk. I mean, that's just an absolute beauty.
Repeatable goals, Velarde goal. That's your lamplighter of the game. If you're looking for that, for the wow factor, it's Pionk on the game winner for the unbelievable pass and the just kind of structured hockey. The Mason Appleton push, the Barron beating his man to the net, the unbelievable pass by David Gustafsson. That's just an absolutely gorgeous goal. We talked about it quickly with the Colorado Avalanche. The way that, I mean, Nino Niederreiter is a really good defending player, and the way that Nathan McKinnon gets into his blind spot to accept the pass, but do so going in the wrong direction, going against the grain, so that when Niederreiter turns and looks to see where the pass has gone, by that point, it's already too late. He's moved into the middle and he's got that space. That is like, you want to know how guys like that end up scoring as many points as they do. It's because they've got that high IQ stuff here. And then beyond that, the goal that was scored, to your point about Rantanen also going against the grain and leaving it to just give that little bit of a lane to Cale Makar. The thing that's crazy about this to me, Ken, is you're going in on the number one goaltender in the NHL. He takes and puts the puck into a spot where Dylan DeMello, who you saw, his stick is absolutely great at defending right now. He gets around that great defender's stick, and Josh Morrissey is about to chip that puck off of his stick. Where he shoots that from, he shouldn't be able to get that puck where he gets it. He should not be able to beat Connor Hellebuyck in that situation. Honestly, the subtlety of that goal is near impossible to score. And for that, I give that goal, the Cale Makar goal, the TCB Lamplighter of the game. But it doesn't really matter what I think, matters what you think. Share with us your hashtag TCB Lamplighter of the game. You're automatically entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny to gift you your 8-pack, head on down to 11290 Keniston Boulevard. Join them in their tap room where they've got all kinds of beers, and someone who's going to be taking a trip down there right away to pick up their Lampies, that would be Ron Lotz. Ron, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email. I will send you a voucher for a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. It is the nectar of the gods. Ken, anything to say before we go?
Yeah, just an impressive bounce back game. Again, I know that you feel a little bit differently than I do about the effort from Monday, but when you get challenged, it's up to you to respond, and the Jets responded accordingly for me. Again, the other response that you and I will both be looking for is Friday. Utah HC, as you pointed out eloquently, has provided a very solid game plan and executed that game plan for a good chunk of 120 minutes so far against the Jets. They're 1-1 in their series, and I'm curious to see if the Jets can find some solutions to some of the issues that have been caused by the solid defending by Utah HC. Yes, I mean, puck management is part of that, but sometimes you get forced into making puck management decisions by the opposition. So I'm curious to see what the response is going to be like, and I expect the Jets to respond with an effort.
I'll say this again, and I'll stand by this. I thought the Jets' effort was not that much different against Utah than it was here tonight. I mean, both Utah and Colorado were able to possess the puck for large swaths of the game for the most part in both games. The Jets' defensive play was really good, other than some glaring mistakes that were made. But to your point, Ken, regardless, their coach felt differently and challenged them, and they went out and played an airtight game in which the 2 goals that were scored were just like super high IQ, crazy talented, skilled individuals who had to pull out like 100% of what they were capable of to go and score on this night. And on this night, to me, the very simple difference in this game is one team was better with the details. One team worked harder to keep the puck out of their net. One team was more committed to defense in the game plan. The Winnipeg Jets were that team. So asked by Arnie and responded to by the Winnipeg Jets. There's nothing you can take away from the idea that they came out and played far more airtight tonight than they did last game against the Utah Hockey Club. We'll see how they do against Utah. I am truly fascinated because I want to see what the Winnipeg Jets coaching staff comes up with to handle what, again, I actually think Andre Tourigny is a really, really good coach. I can see why Utah/Arizona has held on to him as long as they have. I think he's one of those guys that is doing a really, really good job with that team. If they can add a little bit more, they could be a team to really be contending against in the coming years. That's it for us. Thank you so much, everybody. Ken, you did a great job. Thanks to all our commenters and our posters. We really do appreciate you, everything that you ask from us and comments that you give to us. We would ask you, if you appreciate the conversation going on in this space, please support our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space. For us, that's Vittorio Rossi, Cambrian Credit Union, Sweet Lou Furlan, Pristine Roofing, the Kenny and Renny OGs and the Johnson Group, Trans-Canada Brewing Company, and of course the Keg. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you. Let's reconvene and do this all over again on Friday. Bye-bye.